This podcast is sponsored by Pogo, property operations on the go. Facility managers know how challenging it can be to keep everything running smoothly. That's why Pogo was created, a white-labeled software solution designed by property managers for property managers. Pogo is your ultimate all-in-one platform for managing multiple assets. With Pogo, you communicate with your tenants, manage maintenance requests, control property access, manage bookable spaces, and much more. Plus, with advanced analytics, Pogo empowers you to optimize your operations anytime, anywhere. The best part? Pogo is completely customizable to fit your brand and business. Simplify your operations, enhance tenant satisfaction, and save money with Pogo. Ready to make the switch? Visit gopogo.us to schedule your demo today. Pogo, one system, multiple solutions at your fingertips. Mark Beffert here for The Real Opportunity, our episode number 14. I'm just really excited to have Mike Knopp here today with us to really talk about river sport and really how we as a city took a dried up river and created a world-class venue. So Mike, thank you for being here today. Mike's a founder of the river sport. There's lots happened.
Yeah, a lot has happened, Mark. It's great being here. Thanks for asking me. And I've been working with you for a long time, and you've been around, so it's been quite a journey. I will tell you that. So,
well, I'd like to get into. I want to know a little bit. Tell us about your background, how you got into your love and passion for rowing and paddle sports.
I'll try to keep this short, but I will just kind of a quick summary. I grew up in Minnesota. I was born in Kansas. And
we're in Kansas,
in just outside of Kansas City, Mission, in Prairie Village area.
So I was born in Salina.
Okay, and so my whole family is in different parts of Kansas, but my dad worked for the federal government, so we moved around a little. He was an agent for the ATF, and so we ended up in Minnesota. Spent my childhood there, and landed 10,000 lakes. We would spend a lot of time on the water, and we weren't rowing, but I think something about just being on the water really got into me. And then he got transferred to DC, and this is in middle school, and I would be on my way to school every day, and I'd see the Naval Academy rowing just off the Chesapeake Bay, and I was like, I want to do that someday. And so then my dad came home from work one day and said, I got to tell everyone something. And he said, I was transferred to Oklahoma City. I said, well, there goes that idea. That's not going to ever happen. And so we moved here. I had all the, the typical stereotype thoughts of what Oklahoma was going to be. And I was going into as a junior in high school, became a swimmer, and I went to OSU. And I was shocked one day when I saw the dorm elevator close, and it had a poster, and it had a guy standing with an oar saying, "Join crew." And I'm like, really? At Oklahoma State? And so I called the number, and at 5:30 in the morning, I met a bunch of guys at the YMCA, and they took me out in February to Lake Carl Blackwell. And I have to say, it was probably the worst conditions ever in the sport, in terms of just not just the water, but also if you've seen Boys in the Boat or read the book, it's like vintage, the equipment was old, but something about it just
showed back up.
But I showed back up, and I kept showing back up. And awesome. I think it was the grit and the teamwork. And rowing is, everyone uses the phrase, we're all in the same boat. Well, it comes from rowing. And I think it's when you're in it with a bunch of guys, and we just kind of bonded, and it just hooked into me. It's something that stuck with me. And I took it from there, from OSU. I went to law school and really started planting some seeds here.
Yeah, you're interesting. You're right. In the business world, we say we got to row together.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of similarities to rowing, and the competitive nature and the teamwork, what it takes to really be successful. That's really cool.
Mark, I've used this a lot in terms of just how I've seen things develop here in Oklahoma City, and it's convenient for me to use the metaphor, being the rower guy. But really, a boat doesn't, in rowing, you don't really go very fast. You don't get anywhere if you're not working. You could be the strongest crew, but if you can't figure out how to work together, you're going to lose every time to that smaller crew or that. And so at OSU, we were always the underdogs, but we would win a lot of times because we pulled together. And so I see that here in our development of the river, is we just figured out a way through maps to pull together as a city.
It's interesting. I've got a lot of questions and a lot of things I want to talk to you about. One of the things you said was Chesapeake Bay, which is really known for world-class rowing, right? Mm-hmm. And what do you think they think about us today hosting the Olympics? And we'll get to some of the international sports that were that you've really attracted here. How do they view us?
There was, well, at first I would say there was a lot of skepticism, and the first regatta that we hosted, major regatta.
Tell us what a regatta is.
This was the regatta is a rowing race.
Okay,
so,
rowing race. Okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
So I felt like we needed to introduce our community to what this sport was. Rowing is the oldest intercollegiate sport in America. It's older than football and basketball, and so
Is it really?
yeah, it's but it was new at the time for us in Oklahoma City. Well, we knew obviously football and basketball was embedded in our culture, and I thought, well, gosh, how do we introduce this tradition? So, what I asked the most traditional team, Harvard, to come, and this is in 2004, and their
You
coach,
brought the Harvard team here in 2004
in 2004
to give you some ideas.
to row in our race.
Oh, to row in a race.
So I
Did
thought,
they
well,
come?
and they came, and that was a big, there was a lot of little steps along the way. I consider a lot of milestones. That was one of them, because Harry Parker is just a legendary coach. If you were to Google him, you would see, and I think he was surprised I called, and I made the pitch. They don't typically change their schedule, but they said, I think I want to support growing rowing, in the heartland. So he brought his team out.
I just got goosebumps. That's pretty cool.
And so there's the guys with the big H, on their shirt, racing my little OCU team that I had built. And our guys did respectable, but Harvard was here. And I think after they came, Harry said, that was really an amazing experience. You got this great venue. We had no idea. And they came back for 10 years.
10 years in a row.
10 years in a row.
So let's get into that.
Yeah.
So before we get into the venue itself,
Yeah.
You mentioned something. So you started the rowing program at Oklahoma City University, and it still rows today.
Yes.
Downtown. We actually have somebody that works with us at Robinson Park. And, Jackson Anderson. Jackson Anderson, and he actually came to Oklahoma City to join your rowing program.
That's right. We've recruited kids, athletes from across America, really across the world. And there was a big leap of faith I took at one point in my career. That was another turning point. I was assistant DA here in Oklahoma County for 5 years, and the river was a ditch back then. And I would go and I'd jog down there at lunch and just say, God, it's a straight, it's too, I was like, if I could just convey to people, if we had water, this would be really world class, because it was 2,000 meters long, 400 feet wide. So if you look at any Olympic venue from a Google Earth, you'll see it looks reminiscent of that. So I didn't know, I wasn't connected. So I was like trying to convey to people.
You're just a little DA intern.
DL intern, yeah. And so I started trying to call and talk to everyone I could talk to. And, as I mentioned earlier, Ray Ackerman who was obviously a huge advocate for the river. And I like to say, how this led to OCU was we had the groundbreaking for the dam. I was paying close attention. We were rowing out at Lake Overholser. My wife and I started a program, which is on the west side of town. And we all just did it volunteer in our spare time. So I'd go and in my suit and my big jacket, I'd do some coaching. I'd go to the courthouse, and I knew that we're breaking ground on this big maps project, and they're actually going to put water in the river. And I'm like, this could be amazing, but I didn't know how to get people's attention. So I said, it luckily had rained enough that it puddled up enough water, and I got some people to help me put boats in the water, and that became the backdrop. Didn't ask permission, but for the groundbreaking, and that's where OCU decided to get involved. So
okay, so you've started into how this whole river sport got going.
Yeah.
And we had a river that was dry.
Yeah.
And it was not in good shape.
Yeah.
And it flowed a little bit, but nothing to what it is today. So talk a little bit about what the challenges were and who was behind and helping bring it to where it got to a point. And we'll get into all the development stuff later. So.
Sure. Well, you're right. I mean, if you think about it, the river, cities, all the great cities in the world have some form of water, a river, an ocean, a sea. Yeah. And we had this river, but it went through the middle of our city, and it was like desolate. It was an eyesore. It divided our community. Now, Oklahoma City was settled right next to the river for a reason. People are drawn to the water, and it
Right.
was source.
Yeah,
And we had a zoo and amusement park. Everything moved away because it flooded, and so there was a stigma about the river being, oh, this ugly ditch. What good is? Again, I was a DA for a while, and I knew what went down at the river. It wasn't always great, because it was just people stayed away, and so I got a lot of skepticism. And people like Ray Ackerman did always believe. And he forwarded the idea of putting water back in our river. Now, people didn't know necessarily what we were going to do with it, and that's where I kind of came into play. And but I said, the idea of a river, and is more than just having a pretty body of water by your city or a place that you build a restaurant next to. We have to activate it. And that was my focus, is like, how do we bring life to the river? How do we bring people back to the river where the city was settled? Yeah. And so that was our primary focus, is just getting programming started. And the only way to get programming really started is we needed a boathouse. And people were like, a boathouse on that ditch? You're like, what? It didn't make sense. I mean, I said, well, that should be our first development on the river, because that will bring people to the river. And so I planted seeds everywhere I could for that. And we had a very modest idea of what that boathouse could be, even though I knew, we could do something really special, until I was able to connect with Aubrey McClendon here in town and some other.
It went from being modest to something really pretty iconic and special today.
Well, and that was really, really important to all of this. And I will never forget, I just mentioned the damming of the river. And so once the river had enough water in it, I said, we need to have a race, a regatta, to kind of cut the ribbon. And so it was a big deal. Harvard didn't come for that. We had Wichita State. I invited whoever I could get, and I think it was just surprising to people that somebody actually came to our river, and we cut the ribbon. And Aubrey came to that event. I was surprised to see him there, and I never forget. I think the idea of all these community leaders and stakeholders seeing activity on this river, it was kind of like an aha moment. Like, oh, okay, we kind of get it now. And so that night, I was communicating with Aubrey, and I said, we could either build this boathouse and it'd be great and just get going, or we could recognize that this is a world-class opportunity, and in the first development of the river is going to be really important to send a message to our community, but also to the Harvards of the world and the people around the rowing world and the paddle sports world, that we're serious about this. And he said, well, yes, we've got to do that. And that's where he hired Rand Elliott, and it became a centennial project. And that was really a kickoff point.
Where my mind was going is, it's like life is, people need to take risks and really follow their passion. And Mike, that's what you've done. And you've created your own river of dreams.
Yeah.
And you build it, and they will come. And that's where we are today. And I'm thankful for the passion that you have committed, and you committed your life to this river sport. And you've had other opportunities to leave, and just thankful that you've stayed here. And it's grown to a point that it is it's a pretty special place, and frankly, it's part of our fabric of our community today, and we got to continue to make that happen. And I think that is the reason why we're hosting the canoe and kayaking for the 28 Olympics. Yeah. Before we get into that, I'd like to really get into you're an international figure. People internationally know you in this particular sport, and I think you need to be commended for that, because you brought that to Oklahoma. Talk about some of the international events that you've hosted and what we have coming up as a precursor to the Olympics.
Well, as I said earlier, there were several kind of milestone moments along the way, and they all add up. They're all can't get into all of that, but I would say a couple ones I'd highlight is, I knew that as we were going to take on this opportunity, I had to convince people that this truly could make Oklahoma City a global sports destination, because I knew I could see it, with the venue and just it's unique, it's urban, and so this is, taking you back a little bit, but I said, we need to have an international competition. And I'm like, I know we can't get a world championship. We are unproven. No one's going to come. So what did I do? I just made something up. I made up the World Challenge. And the World Challenge became, I mean, Oklahoma State didn't know any different. People just said, oh, we're getting the World Challenge. And naively, I was younger, and I thought, well, I'm going to just get all the Olympic teams. I got Harvard to come that one, so why not get?
So Harvard came to the World Challenge.
No. So I got Harvard to come to a previous event. So surely I can work my magic on Germany, and so turns out it was a little harder than I thought. And I went to Munich. This is where these relationships have been key, and I had to kind of make my way into the VIP area to talk to some of the coaches. And they gave me this funny look about Oklahoma, like, what? Oklahoma City? And I came away from that event with the Republic of Georgia as the only one that committed. And I was kind of down. I'm thinking, well, there's nothing. I mean, it's great. It's international, but it's not like Australia or what, in terms of a powerhouse in the sport. Yeah. And so I got back and I'm like, the event's 2 months away. I need some teams. So I called U.S. Rowing, and they understood the importance of trying to grow the sport in America. They convinced Canada to come. Oh, wow. And once Canada came, I got a call from the Czech Republic, and they said, look, we hear about this little World Challenge you're wanting to have, and we will come.
Oh, this little.
Yeah, we will come if you arrange for our Olympic team to ride Harleys on Route 66. I'm like, done. So they came. And then the Australia team, once they committed, then Australia committed, then Germany committed, then Great Britain. So we had like a real major international event in 2007. And I will never forget, on camera at that event, I had the chief operating officer of the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee say, this is amazing. This is an incredible venue. This is the future of the sport. And then I had the Australian national team head coach say, we had an incredible time. This is one of our favorite events we've been to. I'm like, we've been a river for like just a few years. Yeah, I mean, awesome. And so that propelled us. And then that led to, got Olympic trials the next year. And ultimately, I think we'd built enough. People thought I was a little crazy at first talking about rowing. And then I brought up whitewater. People really thought that was odd that we were talking about whitewater in Oklahoma City. I had actually been thinking about it since I have studies that we had kind of done in the late 90s, but we couldn't figure out how we would ever do it. But Charlotte had built a course that was fully artificial. And so we proposed that for MAPS 3, as well as stadium lights. We were the only venue in the world, I could say, that had a lighted race course. So it was like looking for all these big differentiating
little nuggets that kept,
the things that keep us, and those things worked and they passed. And I think part of it was, as I said, as a community, we people pulled together. They may be skeptics at first, and then they're like, okay, this is interesting, and it worked. It hasn't been easy, but I would say a big turning point in that was then I could go to the London 2012 Olympics, and I could go and I met all the international officials, building relationships and saying, we're going to build a world-class whitewater facility in Oklahoma City. And they're like, really? And I showed them the plans, and that led to them really forming a bond, and we were able to get an actual world championship on the river. It was a flat water event. And those relationships were so critical. And in the Olympic movement, that's what it's all about. You got to get to know people, and it takes a long time to build trust. And thankfully, we have a great team at Riversport, and we executed every one of those events in a really top-notch way. And I would say that to kind of close this is there's a story about the LA Olympics, and I don't know if you want to get into that. And
I do. Yeah, absolutely, because that
because
really,
it kind of ties to this.
That's right. That's going to cap it off. So, I'd like to really. It's been a long time. So you say it's back into, when was it? 2003 when it first started?
Well, yeah, the damming of the river started in '99, and we were programming things at Lake Overholser. We started with a shipping container at the river in 2001, and then the Chesapeake Boathouse opened in 2006.
2006, okay.
Yeah.
So it's been a long time. Tough ride.
Yeah.
It's been a tough ride.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, you and I have known each other, and I've been a part of it a little bit. Just on that, I by no means had anything to do with any of the success of the river sport, but I've been front row seat on some of the challenges. But you've endured. Let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges and the defeats that you've had.
Yeah.
Obviously, one of the greatest supporters, unfortunately, left us in Aubrey McClendon, And then how were you able to fill that void
Yeah.
once Aubrey left?
Yeah, there's certainly been, I can, as I use the metaphor for rowing about, you know, pulling together, I also can use the metaphor whitewater as being pretty turbulent at times. And
Yeah.
it's been the ups and downs. And I think that's the way when you're doing big things that are, I mean, no one's ever done this before. I mean, and in terms of what we've pulled together. And I think part of it was recognizing that we had to build a culture. We had to introduce something, and it can't be, I mean, and with that, there's just a lot of education. There's a lot of, it's hard to just build, you build these facilities and you got to operate these facilities, and you're a nonprofit and you're trying to make it all work and do it at a level that is going to set the stage for the future and do it at a high level. And that's been challenging. And like everything else, when you take risks, some things work, some things don't. Right. But that's where you learn from those ones that don't. And there were some instances we had a triathlon, and in all cases that the event actually went great. Until I got a call 2 days later from the Associated Press saying there's some athletes in the hospital. Tell us about that. I had no idea, and my heart sunk, and I'm like, oh my God, it's all over now. And so, as it turns out, you learn what it means to have an urban river, and we actually grew from that as if it's not just as a city. I mean, the International Triathlon Union felt like no big deal. I mean, this happens, but for us, it was a stigma thing. We overcoming a stigma of the river and people thinking it's dirty, and it's really not. On a given day, we found an issue with something that was fixed.
Right.
And so it was like that, those sorts of things. And there was economic challenges, and you mentioned Aubrey, which was a real blow because he was, the spirit of this onward and upward spirit of his, and always asking what's next and always pushing forward. That mentality became core to, I've learned from him as a mentor, and that's really how we push things along. And then the sudden tragedy of losing him literally 1 month prior to opening the Whitewater Center, coinciding with the energy industry being very challenged at that moment. Yes, so we really had a time that was but I also was very, very confident in the product that we had. We had built a world-class venue. We had to make some tough choices with some, value engineering at the time, just because you're doing something no one's ever done here, and so that made some challenges in terms of operating. But I would say that a core tenet that we always stuck to was that whatever we build, it needs to be to a Olympic standard. And it wasn't because we actually thought we were going to get the Olympics. It doesn't get any better.
It was the gold standard.
It was the gold standard.
That's right.
And it was like the gold standard. So if we're going to, so we had many chances where we could have said, well, this whitewater, let's cut that channel short, or let's do this thing. And said, whatever we do, we're not going to touch that. We may have to take away every piece of furniture and every other thing. We're not going to touch the channel length. And so those were the things that we had to do and overcome. Then we had to overcome the issue that we didn't have furniture or things like that and make it work. And then it just, introducing the community to this new thing that, was challenging to operate. I mean, it's a big undertaking. And we weren't like Charlotte that had this embedded more outdoor culture.
Right.
But I think when you look at this generationally, even though I've gotten some gray hair over this, I think, history will show that over generations that we're going to see parents who were skeptical and like, it's not really my thing, I'm not going to do it. Well, their kids are getting involved, and their kids are loving it, and they're engaged. And then their kids are going to get engaged, and it's going to go on and on. So.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Charlotte because I was on that trip. We do the intercity trips, so we go to different cities and learn things that they've done right, things that they've done wrong. We bring it back, and so it was that Charlotte trip and their Whitewater Rapids Park that gave us the idea to build one here. Correct?
Well, it was. I will never forget.
Well, you already had the idea.
I had the idea, and we
visited there.
We visited because we did a kind of a sales pitch to everyone's ideas for Maps 3, and we did that, and my little pitch ended up saying, well, why don't we make our intercity visit? And that became the point that really, I think, solidified the idea for everyone. And it's been, like I said, it pays to be different. It's challenging to be different, like very challenging. But when you build something in Oklahoma City that is completely unexpected, it becomes talked about worldwide, and especially in these circles, these Olympic circles. And I think that has been really, really powerful. And even to the point where right in COVID, which was a challenge for all of us, everyone had a challenge through that, but we
still do.
Yeah, no,
I do.
Yeah,
I still do.
Yeah, exactly. And there was Russia invaded Ukraine at one point towards the end and of COVID, and right at the tail end, and the IOC and the International Canoe Federation said we need to take all events out of Russia, and Ukraine can't do events, and they had events. There was two events. There was a World Cup and a Super Cup that were on the water.
Okay.
And they called me and they said, will you take these events? So that's like we had built enough of a reputation for them to call us. And it was one of those moments where I'm like, because I knew what was at stake. No one else knew except for a couple of us with LA 28. And I knew if we could say yes, that would really help solidify things. Yeah.
Think about this, Mike. We went from early 2000s, built our first facility in 2006.
Yeah.
Filled up a river.
Yeah.
And you're now getting a call during COVID from the IOC. And the IOC, if I know this correctly, International Olympic Committee.
Yeah.
Wow. And that's impressive, Mike.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Okay. Before we let's get into the star of the show. LA 28.
Yeah.
So I don't know the whole story. I want all of our listeners to hear the story. I mean, it's a
story.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah. Well, it was back in 2017. LA had won the bid for the Olympics, and in their bid packet, they had a whitewater facility. They had an answer for every Olympic discipline that they had to host. But they had a location, and within having worked in the Olympic movement for a long time, I knew a lot of people. And there was a guy with LA who I knew, and he called me and he said, "Look, we need to do some research on this whitewater thing, because we got to build one of these things. So we'd like to come out. Would you give us a tour?" I said, "Certainly." So they came out, group of people. I took them around the whole venue, and I took them in the pump house. And if you've not seen our pump, it's a very elaborate. We pump 500,000 gallons per minute. We could fill up an Olympic
500,000 gallons per minute
when we turn all the pumps on.
That you recycle.
Yeah, we recycle that water, and we could fill up an Olympic-sized swimming pool in 80 seconds. That's the kind of power that helps create our whitewater. And I think they're looking at this, and I saw their big eyes were like, "Oh God, this is a huge." And I just said right there, I said, "We could make it real easy and just have it here," And
I love that.
And
in sales, you got to ask.
Yeah.
Most people don't ever ask.
And I'm like, I got to ask, but I felt like it was a little bit of a lighthearted comment, like ha ha, like it was ever even a chance to move the Olympics. So because it was unprecedented, there'd never been done before like that.
But there wasn't a chance to get Harvard either.
Well, that's right.
There wasn't a chance to do your competition, your challenge.
Yeah.
And you did it.
Yeah. And so I thought, well, and they smirked. But sure enough, of course, the mayor was building a relationship with Mayor Garcetti of LA. And Mayor Garcetti had a reason to come out.
And you say mayor, this Mayor Holt, right?
Mayor Holt, yes, had a reason to come out to Oklahoma City. And this was right after I had done this tour and planted this seed. And Mayor Garcetti came out to the Whitewater Center because he had heard this, thing. And so we kind of gave him, a look around, and he was pretty sold. We took him rafting, and I wrote a letter for the mayor. We collaborated on this, and I pulled out every stop. This sales pitch. I said, "We're home to Jim Thorpe, the world's greatest Olympian, is from Oklahoma. Will Rogers, if you go to LA, Will Rogers is all over so many things. He's such a powerful figure in LA. And of course, synonymous with Oklahoma. The Dodgers, we've got that connection. Route 66, the road to LA, comes right through Oklahoma City. And then I said Native American culture. I think that could be really powerful. And then I ended it with, and this can be the Olympics for Middle America. We haven't had an Olympics in Middle America since 1905, and you can connect LA Olympics to a much greater part of our country if we were involved. And so they came out again, and they're all of their leadership, and they left that meeting saying, we're 90% in on this. It's political. We got to sell it. And I stepped back to one of those political things, and the relationship piece is they had to make sure that the International Federation felt good about this, because again, this had never been done before. And so we're making Olympic history. And so is the International Canoe Federation going to feel like their athletes are being slighted by being 1,360 miles away from LA?
Right, yeah.
And as it turns out, I knew that, which is why we were working on all those events and things that were building those relationships even further. And I was shocked, well, happy, I would say, is better, that I got a call from the president of the ICF one day. He said, Mike, we've been thinking about this a lot. And what if we propose to LA that the Olympics for canoe slalom be hosted at your venue? I said, great idea.
Yeah.
See, and part of it is, of course, I told them that we were, we love that that was our dream, but we needed to have their buy-in, and I didn't have to sell it. They were all in because they knew, A, we could do it, and we could do it well, and B, that this would amplify their sport, and that being, and sure enough, fast forward to today, we finally were able to have LA City Council. We sat on this secret for 5 years, where only maybe a few people knew about it.
I was on the trust tree.
Yeah. And then it kind of expanded once LA was a little more vocal. And then finally, past spring, the LA City Council approved it. So now we're in like full-on preparation mode. And for us, that starts with a world championship next summer, which is a little scary. But
let's talk about that. So where was the world championship for? Is this rowing?
This is for canoe slalom.
Canoe slalom.
Yeah.
So where was it held last year?
So it's in Australia. So, and that's where I'm going.
You're going here shortly to go to Australia. So it's in Australia this year.
Yes.
Next year it's in Oklahoma
City. It's in Sydney at their former Olympic venue.
Wow.
And so you have to have an event like a World Championship before you host an Olympic event. It's kind of a requirement that you've tested the venue.
Right.
And so it's really important that goes very well, and I'm confident it will. And we're going to have up to 60 countries coming to Oklahoma City next July. It'll be for most their first exposure to Oklahoma City, and it'll really set the stage for what comes later. And I will say, going back to our LA discussion, that when the ICF kind of made that, it was really kind of this ultimate moment of affirmation that they actually would volunteer the idea that we're going to take our sport and put it in Oklahoma City for the Olympics, or promote that, knowing that they're not going to be in the middle of the action in LA, but also understanding this could be a great opportunity. We can showcase the sport, and in a way that maybe would be a little different in LA. And, that moment has, I think it really led to the fact that at the World Championship, we're going to have this moment to educate this opportunity, our community, on a sport that they're probably not real familiar with.
Sure.
But yet, one of the points I was making about the ICF is that there's 22 million people that paddle in America, because you can go buy a boat at Walmart and get on the water. And now this is a little more revved up, on the whitewater, but still,
right.
In other sports, golf or cycling, people follow, the professionals. And so we're really going to try to connect those dots. And one exciting thing is that it really came to fruition that this was I think the ICF was, it was really fortuitous that they called me and we made this whole arrangement, and everyone got on board and was excited, because now LA has announced that this event, canoe slalom in Oklahoma City, will be the first event of the Olympic Games in LA.
Are you kidding me?
It'll be the first event. So it'll be in the only event on what they call day 0, which is the day of the opening ceremony.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
So it's going to put Oklahoma City as the kickoff.
Yeah.
And then for 9 days of the Olympic Games, Oklahoma City will be the first thing on TV in the morning when you're watching when you get up and you're watching the morning. It'll be Oklahoma City at our canoe slalom event.
Unbelievable.
And so it's going to be truly a global degree of exposure. We think how do we accommodate the hundreds of thousands of people that will come, because it is going to make it so accessible. And of course, this led, once canoe slalom was committed, then softball made its way back into the Olympics. It had not been in the Olympics, and so it became a natural place to say,
sure, we got the
why
best
don't
venue
we
in the
why don't
country.
we just combine it? And they agreed with that. So again, going back to the Worlds this summer, or next summer, it's really going to be this moment to step out there and show what we're all about, and so we're really focused on that right now.
So tremendous. So you use the acronym. It's ICF. That's the International Canoe Federation.
International Canoe Federation.
And you've been on that committee and that board for.
Well, I'm not on the board, but I've been working with them for so long.
Okay,
I've been on the board of the USA Canoe Kayak, so the NGB, and so we have we've just in fact, it's taken me around the world. You have to kind of play in this sandbox, and so I will never forget going to Budapest, and it was 2013 where I made the big Oklahoma City pitch to their Congress, which is all the leaders from around the world about showing the future. Planted that seed. And I say that because their Congress is going to be in Oklahoma City next summer as part of this World Championship. They've never had a Congress in America.
Wow.
So we're going to have all the global leaders of the sport, and they're going to rebrand their entire organization for the first time in 100 and whatever years to paddle worldwide, to make it more, given the growth of paddle sports. So anyway, a lot of interesting things that have kind of come around.
Yeah. So obviously we're gonna have to make some improvements and some changes and build grandstands and all that. It's tell us a little bit about some of the improvements we have to make to host the Olympics.
Well, I think one thing I really want to underscore is that we're not making any improvements for the Olympics. We're making improvements for the legacy of the Olympics, and those improvements, all the things I'm going to explain, were things that we had always kind of had in the mix.
Okay.
But this gives us an opportunity
to
do them, and because the IOC doesn't. There's been there have been examples we've all heard about where facilities have been built and then they're not used after. And so we're really trying to get away from that in the Olympic movement. This is really why we ended up with the Olympics here in Oklahoma City, is because LA didn't have this venue. This is the one major venue they didn't have. And so they're kind of considering LA as the no-build Olympics. And so we are really trying to stay true to that, but it's great when you're adding things that will have a legacy impact. And so that means in our center island, we have a hill that originally was supposed to be terrace seating, and it's going to come back now as terrace seating. And we're going to create a giant, really cool, iconic shade structure, because shade is something we desperately need down there. And it'll have facilities like a little cafe and things to serve our guests. What's one of the things, and when I mentioned challenges and cuts earlier, is just not being able to have the amenities that would really cause people, similar to what we saw in Charlotte, who just want to come and hang out and be in this really unique environment. And so those are things that we're bringing in. Of course, that building, that facility, will be able to have the Olympic rings on it, which will be incredible, as a legacy. There were improvements to the course itself that we're making that, again, it's going to be 10 years old, believe it or not. And so we're going to upgrade it and make it even more. What's so unique about this course is it's so interchangeable. You can change the dynamics. And, we have a lot of people in Oklahoma City, I don't think, realize that truly what we have in Oklahoma City is like best in class already. Like, we are one of the best in the world. We have a steeper gradient than most whitewater courses in the world, so that means it's more exciting. And so we're going to enhance that. And then you mentioned grandstands. That is going to be a big part of this. Like, how do we get thousands of people in there? So we're designing a temporary grandstand like they do at the Olympics that will create a seating on the south side of our channel. And so if you can imagine the whitewater course and basically the athletes paddling through a valley of people. The atmosphere in Paris was just electric. I mean, it was like an OU football game, and we've got to figure out how to create that energy, which I know we will. And one thing that goes with that is the new discipline that was introduced in Paris.
What was that?
So in Paris, the sport introduced kayak cross, and Sports Illustrated immediately said after the Olympics, they said that was the breakout sport of the Olympic Games.
Wow.
And that's going to be here. And it's basically, it takes 4 boats on a ramp, and the ramp drops. They fall 10 feet into the water, and then they got to get down the course as fast as they can, going around pylons. But it's full contact. So they're running over each other, and I mean, it's very aggressive.
Yeah.
And they got to roll at a certain point, and it's very easy to watch. The first one through the line wins. So it's a super exciting new brand for the sport that goes in addition to slalom.
And we're hosting that.
And we're hosting that, and we'll be showcasing that at the World Championship next summer. So very exciting. And there's some Team USA hopefuls, which is medal contenders, which is exciting too. And I will say that
anybody from Oklahoma?
Not on the whitewater side. We're too young yet. I mean, a lot of these, but we're building that. Okay. I think we'll see that in the future. But what I would say is it's kind of like skiing where there's no other river sport. So our course is unique. It's unlike swimming where it's a pool. I mean, it's unique. So we're not only a global venue because they're going to come for the Worlds or the Olympics, but they're going to come here and train. So we're going to have athletes from all over the world here in Oklahoma City for the next 3 years training because they want to do well on the. I mean, we've cornered the market on global venue. I mean, having the World Championship and the Olympics within this 3-year period. Yeah. So it's going to be exciting for the city. Yeah.
Well, Mike, I think that it goes without saying your passion for river sport is truly remarkable, and you're a true ambassador for the city when it comes to river sport and rowing sports, and you've helped us put on the map. It's been hard. It's been hard. We've had some really, really difficult years, but everything that's worthwhile is difficult. So I appreciate you hanging with it, getting through the challenges, and it's exciting. So
I think it's really exciting. We took a trip to Atlanta with the chamber last year because it was the last time that the Olympics were hosted in America, the Summer Games, and Atlanta told us that. They were a big city before, but truly once they hosted the Olympics, they became truly global. It turned into billions of dollars of economic impact, and they learned to do big things. So we're going to build a volunteer coalition of 5,000 or more people, and it's like, what does this take us to in the future? And having this global Olympic exposure, what kind of economic impact can that generate for our city? So it's very exciting.
And what the Thunder have done. Thunder have.
You can't have a discussion about this without the Thunder. Yeah, it's amazing.
That's a whole different discussion. But they have put us on the world stage.
Yes.
I went to China earlier this summer on a business trip, and I can't tell you how many people asked about the Thunder in China.
Yeah, it's amazing. So
what they've done, and this is the next step for us to really show what Oklahoma truly is about. So
it's very exciting, and legacy is a huge part. For that means getting kids, getting families, getting people, changing our quality, enhancing our quality of life and health and fitness and all of those things. So a lot comes out of this. So
yeah. Well, thank you for being here today. Really, really appreciate sharing your story. And so we like to end with what we call the real op of the day, the real opportunity of the day, and I think it's perseverance. Yeah. And I think that you've exhibited that from, as you said early on, from an idea of seeing a dry river to where today that we're hosting the Olympics, and never give up on your dreams. And you have not done that. Yeah. And I've said it earlier. Appreciate you hanging with us, and you're the true ambassador for us in the river sport.
Well, thank you, Mark. Truly appreciate that, and like I said, it's been a team effort. So it's exciting to where we can all go together in the future. So thank you.
In our next episode, I'll be joined by Sandino Thompson, a developer, entrepreneur, and community builder who's creating opportunity where it matters most. We talk about what it means to invest in your own community, how to recognize the right moment to act, and why progress often starts with believing the opportunity is already there. We hope you enjoyed our discussion today and learned some things along the way. The day is what you make of it. See you in 2 weeks.